This is Q on CBC Radio 1 across Canada, Sirius 137 across North America, from PRI, Public Radio International, and on Bold Television. Well, it's hard to believe that just a few years ago, M.I.A. Arulpragasam was still working in the relative obscurity of the London, UK art scene when her debut album, Arular, dropped under the moniker M.I.A. She made a noise on that record that reverberated through London, through New York, around the world. A Sri Lankan British visual artist who picked up a mic and changed the game with a global mash of sounds, and whose own experience of growing up in the shadow of Sri Lankan civil war, then later in the bleak reality of a London council estate, gave her music a pointed political message to hang on those great beats. The most apt description of M.I.A. when she first arrived on the global scene might have come from the rap star Nas, who declared that M.I.A.'s sound is the future. Well, the future is now, yet again, with the release of M.I.A.'s third full-length record, M.I.A., and I'm very glad to have M.I.A. back here in Studio Q. Hello.
Hi.
Oh,
Hiya.
welcome
Hello.
back.
Hi.
Nice to have you here again,
Thanks for having me.
replete with a fancy new nail polish as well, and socks.
I figured that I'm one of those things that is yeah, I've toned down the color basically.
You've toned down the
This
color,
is-
but you express
yes.
it on fingernails still.
Yes. If you know me, you'd get it.
Well, I get that you're wearing black and white otherwise, and then there's this a wild splash of color on your fingers.
I'm inspired by Photoshop today.
Right, so you photoshopped your fingernails.
Yeah.
I got it. This album, I mean, it came out in July here in North America. I get a sense that there's been a lot happening in your world over the summer. Does this still feel like a new record to you?
Yeah, I haven't even started. I'm just taking the punches, sitting back, seeing what happens, and yeah, I guess I'll be starting soon.
What do you mean by taking the punches?
I don't know. I feel like a lot of people have been taking cheap shots because that's how it goes, and but the whole point is to show that. And I think it's good. It's almost like my version of collecting data. Do you know what I mean?
You collect cheap shots.
So I've collected cheap shots, lots of them, and yeah.
I mean, the cheap shots, how actively do you seek that stuff out, or do you see it? Or are you one of those
I
people
don't
who
seek that out. Like I don't.
Google yourself and see what nasty things people are saying or something?
You don't seek it out, but then it's like you feel it, And I think when you put when I put the video out, Born Free video, like I knew it was gonna come, but even before then, I knew it was gonna come, just because like the internet had changed hands, and I'm sort of exactly the person that needs to be kind of eradicated of, you know what I mean?
The internet had changed hands. Are you saying that the internet went from a democratic open frontier to corporate controlled effectively?
So I think that was the thing, it had changed hands and people didn't know. But I think, I feel like for me it's a good indicator to sort of see who really wants what. You know what I mean?
I was going to get to this stuff later, but I mean, since we're talking about it, how do you inoculate yourself just to be able to survive, to not, be moping around thinking that people are taking shots at you? How do you in advance
because you have to believe it. It's like, it's sort of, as long as when I was making this record, to me, like, I know I put my like blood and guts in this record more than the other two records. So I knew that that's the only way to sort of really protect yourself, is if you gave it your all and if you were completely truthful and honest, then it just doesn't matter. That's how you can take like millions and millions of cheap shots and not be hurt, because it's coming from, where it should come from,
I mean, a lot of people like it too. It's not just like there's a gallery of people issuing cheap shots.
But I
know you want to be the victim, huh?
Not at all. It's just that, if you like the record, I think it's sort of one of those things. It's like, if you like the record and you get the record and you get what I'm trying to say on the record, then it's just one of those things. It's not like you could get up there and like drum up this like, sound and be like, it's so fucking great. It's not. It's just that's the time we're going through. It's like people like me and you, or people who I feel like get it. This time is a time of hibernation to rebuild, reboot, because it's not this. The last 2 years has just been, we're dealing with like some other shit that's not, I just feel like it's not as great and optimistic as it's been written,
Let me come back to.
I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, I get what you're saying. I'm going to come back to if there's any cheap shots and what they are. But let's talk about the record first of all. You speak of the word hibernation. It's interesting because the last time you sat here on the release of your last record, we were talking about how you had been on this adventure, both musically and geographically. You recorded all over the globe. You were in Liberia, Trinidad, India. This record you recorded in Los Angeles, or
it's recorded in America.
It's recorded in America. That's
Yes.
obviously a conscious decision. What was the intent?
It's recorded in the back alley of the Silicon Valley in the United States of America.
Why?
It's pretty in places, but it's ugly in places. It's soft in places, and it's aggressive in places. But yeah, welcome to America, And I also think that it's just sort of, I don't know. I feel like right now, even the French Revolution wouldn't have fucking happened. You know what I mean? Like the way we've set up our world, it's like everyone would be tracked down on Facebook. And you know what I mean? Like there's no possibility for anything anymore.
There's no possibility for anything anymore.
Oh, that sounds so
It's also
wrong.
dire. What are you saying?
No, it's not dire. It's just you have to go, look, here's the goalpost. Here's the edge. Here's the edge. Here's the ceiling. Here's the floor. Like, now work within it, And
But what does that have to do with not globetrotting to make your record and staying in one place?
Oh, that was just like my personal reality. Like I couldn't leave America because I overstayed my visa. And if you overstay your visa, even for 24 hours, you get denied, like blanket denied forever.
So given the choice, would you still do what you've done in the past and be making sounds from all over the world by going to different places?
So once, they were like, if in order for you to get the extension on the visa, then you have to stay in America. So, I ran out of time. Like I was so pregnant, I couldn't get on a plane. So it wasn't like, fuck it, I couldn't do that. So I was just there, and by this time I'd overstayed for about a month or two, and the Grammys happened and stuff like that. Had the baby there, and then, it took about like 8-10 months before I got my visa approved. And as soon as they approved it, I left, to England again. But I made the record in America, and that's just my reality, and that's how it went down.
Is your reality a different reality in terms of where you're at in the public's imagination and in your career, based on the fact that, again, the last time you were here a couple of years ago, you were well known in particular music circles. You certainly have a massive cult following around the world, but now, post massive hit with Paper Planes around the world, post more accessible songs like Jimmy, post Grammys, Oscar nomination, did you grapple with being a different M.I.A., being a worldwide star with making this record? Did that affect you creatively?
No, because I think I was still slightly out of that world, and even though I was sort of living in the music industry's backyard, like literally, I was like 15 minutes down the road. It was kind of, I didn't have management, and I was sort of kind of freewheeling on my own still. So it felt like I had the opportunity to lock myself away. But it definitely, I think, it was an issue, but it was weird because there was so much going on in my personal life. And yeah,
Having a baby,
having a baby,
pretty big deal.
yeah.
Yeah. But, some people have suggested musically, and I would understand this, that you didn't choose, given the opportunity, to make a really pop record following having hit songs. You've made a record that at times is
But
less
why do
accessible.
we have to do it like that?
You
I don't
don't,
get
but
it.
but
I
tell,
don't understand why the progression has to be a chart that looks like the same fucking chart as the growth of like Mac or something. Like, I don't understand why I have to represent my success in the same way as a corporation's growth. It's like, I don't see it like that. Growth to me is growth to me in my own way. I fucking have grown on my record. And to me, I was dealing with shit that growth to me, what it represents, I was dealing with it. That's why that record is so confused, because I was dealing with it.
this record, you feel is confused?
Yeah, I think, it was definitely dealing with all those things of people going, hey, here's the fucking Cinderella shoe, and be thankful you're that little refugee who was on the leaflet of like aid, leaflets from Africa, and now you've made it and you've got to the Oscars, and just go and drive a Bentley and be happy. And, I wasn't there. And yeah, my growth chart is a bit wonky, but like, do you remember like human beings? Like, do you know what I mean? Does anyone remember that shit? Like, do you remember the idea of like being just, I don't know, who you are, or like being a bit sort of, yeah.
It is interesting because, by the way, every time you say the F word, we have to bleep it.
Sorry.
I'm just, it's just we just need quick
Gonna
fingers
squirt
with
some
you
hand
around.
sanitizer in my mouth.
But that's an interesting, I don't know, philosophical point or ideological point, in the sense that we do always track success based on the graph going up.
Yes.
Sales up, numbers
Yes.
up,
Yes.
bigger crowds up.
To me,
And you're saying that up isn't necessarily, the graph going up doesn't necessarily mean success.
no.
We're so socialized to think that's the way it has to go, though.
Yeah.
I mean, if it goes up and down, we're told that that's bad.
Yeah. Yeah, music, you expect music to be a personal thing. You expect music to be made by people who are musicians, who are like in tune with all that stuff. So that's like, you're asking two different things.
But are you saying you're completely unaffected by all that stuff? I mean, in other words, if this record comes out and you don't get an Oscar nomination, and fewer people come to the shows, and a lot of people don't buy the record, that as long as you feel good about the music, that stuff won't bother you. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I think anytime you're doing something interesting, it's a bit uncomfortable for people. I think any time you're sort of pushing something forward, it's uncomfortable. And, people don't get it. If they don't get it, then it's just, I think it's just that I'm doing something. And you know what I mean? I think eventually they will, because, good people are often hated at the time when they're around, and yeah.
I remember this. I remember this in the times I've met you before. I marvel at your strength, like your ability.
I'm just a little bit ignorant.
But is that just talk, or are there moments where you're like in the corner of your bedroom in a fetal position bawling? I mean, do you, or are you always that strong to be able to say, I don't care what, people are taking cheap shots at me, or this or that, or,
No, I think you just have to be like, you have to be prepared going in. It's like, of course, like, this is going to happen. Like, hello, welcome to the world. This has been like that for people, for so long. Like, what's happening with me or to me or whatever is like nothing on the scale of how how imbalanced this shit is on like a bigger level.
Do you feel
know?
like if people didn't react in sometimes in a negative way, you wouldn't be doing your job? Would you be disappointed in yourself?
No.
Like, I mean, it's
sometimes.
part of the intent is to cause a stir.
No, not at all. I wish.
Well, but
I
with
wish
Born Free, the video.
only
Come on,
reason
with the
why
video,
you
Born
think I'm
Free.
causing a stir is because no one else is doing it. Like,
Right.
that's why you think I stick out like a sore thumb as somebody who's obviously so wrong. And it's like, no, that's just because there's no one else doing shit that's like, that we have to sort of deal with right now.
But
It's
when
like,
you put out Born Free, that
Yeah.
video, you don't put that out without knowing that it's going to cause a stir and that a lot of people are not going to like it.
what part of that didn't they like, by the way? I don't get it. Like, I
That's a
don't.
good point. Maybe that
Because it was just ketchup and fake blood.
too gratuitous.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
That was what blew my mind. That at the end of the day, it was like the real execution video I tweeted like 2 months beforehand. Nobody even like tweeted back to me going, that is some awful shit or anything like that. You know, they were totally down for watching naked dead bodies being shot in the head, blindfolded and arms tied behind, you know, and just like executed bodies lying around in a field. No one even gave a shit. No one even talked
For
about
the real
it.
thing. And yet when you make a video.
2 months later, I refilmed that with some ginger people with some fake blood imported from China, and it's the most like horrific thing people had ever seen.
You think you were a victim of censorship when that was pulled off?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But like, that's what I'm saying. Ownership of the internet has changed hands, you know, like internet isn't this amazing free utopia.
And yet
that
people
we've
can still find your
created.
video. You know that too. That I mean,
Yeah, of course. you
anybody
know.
creative on the internet can still find whatever they want, right? To a
Yeah.
certain extent. I mean, they haven't.
Yeah,
it
but
might have changed hands,
that's,
but not.
that's what it's about. You know, that's why my album is difficult, because it's not, that shit is not easy anymore. Like, you have to, it's tough love. It's like, yeah, you want to find the truth, you're going to have to sit there and dedicate some time to it. And you have to, like, learn to read between the lines. You have to, like, sharpen your skills at being able to tell the human from the machine. You have to be able to, like, decode shit. You have to, you know, I might have to come at this and never ever have the opportunity from this day onwards to ever say anything that's like straightforward what it is, you know, because every day I say this stuff, there's another publication, another like politician, another journalist, or another, you know, who's going to try and cut you down because it doesn't go with the status quo of being an artist who just sells products, like, you know, buy this and buy that. And I don't sell things well, you know. And that's
Well, actually, you do. You sell a lot of records.
I
right?
don't sell that many records.
You don't.
That's
The last record didn't sell a lot of records.
No,
comparatively
so people need to quit saying that's my best record, because if that's the case, then they would have bought loads. So that's why I forget about this one.
Why are you such a scrapper? I mean, this music, this song I played off the top, love a lot. You say I really love a lot, I really love a lot, but I fight the ones that fight me. And you make the point that you're not Gandhi. You know, you're not going to just take a blow and take the high road. You're gonna punch back. Is that just in you instinctually, or do you? Is that a core belief of yours that if somebody fights you, you got to fight back? As opposed to Gandhi. Passive resistance.
Well, you know, I think in the end, you know, it is difficult for the little people to win, but there's no reason why they have to sort of take it lying down, you know. And I think everything's really about who writes the history, you know. And fighting back doesn't actually mean you have to like pick up a gun and go and like blow someone's head off, but it just means that you just have to be aware and you have to know that. And, you know, it's just what gets written.
But
you know.
when you say little people, are you a little person? I mean, you're small physically, but are you? But you're a global pop star, a rock star. Don't you have a lot of power? Don't you feel? Wouldn't people look at you and go, "You're powerful at this point." People, you have legions of people who listen to what you say. They'll come to your. They pay to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, but it's not. Of course I'm not. The day I just like jump down and be like, "Hello, here's my name" on the Coca-Cola fucking promotion, yeah, I'll be like that, you know. But I turn down practically everything, and that's the difference. It's like if you don't compromise or something, then you're not gonna get to reach out to a lot of people. Like, the less you say and the less you stand for and the less you mean nothing, the more successful and more powerful you are. You know, that's how it works. And I have a big mouth.
You feel like you'd have to sell out to actually have power.
Yeah, it's true. To actually have access to, you know, sort of a million people, you kind of have to stand for nothing, you know. And because that's how it works.
Arguably the saddest thing I've ever heard.
Hello, welcome to the music industry. You know, when Justin Bieber starts saying some of this shit, you know, then I come back on your show.
I don't know.
We'll do a joint interview.
You know, I think Neil Young has, he has a powerful voice, and he plays arena shows, and that's a guy who still has his integrity.
Yeah, but that's I'm talking about musicians now. Like, you know, you have to take all the people that came up in the last 5 years.
Right.
And
they're held to a different standard than someone like Neil.
Yeah, because that's what I'm talking about. Neil still remembers that time when that used to be like that, you know, and that's the thing. Like,
let me ask you about how you see yourself as a musician or as an artist, because I know you're someone who started out as a visual artist and in film and kind of stumbled into making music. And despite this string of great records that so many of us love that you put out, you suggested a few times over the years that you're not really a musician. Do you still feel that way, or are you willing to accept that you're a musician at this point?
Yeah, no, I'm not.
You're not?
Yeah, I'm still not gonna. I think, you know, I've been really lucky that, I don't know, I could still sort of make all the artwork and do all that sort of stuff, you know, at the same time. So I feel like I haven't quite let it go and sort of taken to one medium, you know. But I think that's going to be like more and more important to me in the future, you know. Yeah.
I kind of don't believe you. If you write these songs and you create the music, how can you not self-identify on some level as a musician?
I don't know what a musician is these days. I just don't know. Yeah. I feel like I don't know. Do I have to like keep making club hits, you know, for kids and deny everything else? And you know, I'm not really sure what.
It's interesting listening. I'm not going to say you're a negative person, but you definitely are. Maybe you're realistic. Maybe you're cynical about the world.
No, I'm just optimistic.
You're
actually.
Optimistic.
Yes, because I think now you can make work that, you know, music goes with. Like, on this tour, I'm going to buy a .com site for every date I do in every single city and just put up whatever I made on my laptop that sat around. Like, that's the problem that I've had with this album, is that I never saw this record as a record like this. It was really 3D, you know. I built like special web 3D moving pages you can like enter and go into and explore for iTunes, but iTunes hasn't built a format that supports what I built, you know. And they'll have it in 3 years' time, and I'm sure, you know, Katy Perry is going to be the first person who launches it. But when I built it, they weren't ready for it, you know. And there's so much shit that I did around this record that there was no way for the music industry to support the level of thought I put into it and the level of creative thinking I put into it on all level, you know, that every sound had an image, every, like, you know, every image had a story and every song had a da-da-da-da, and it was just like, you know, I felt like I tried to build an all-encompassing sort of reflection of what I was going through. And in the end, I got, you know, squashed into this narrow sort of music industry pipeline of how to put your work out. And that's not me. That's just how the internet hasn't caught up to the amount of creativity in the presentation that could exist. You know, 5 years ago, artists on the internet were way more experimental and way more progressive in how they like presented stuff on the internet. And now, even if you look at the most creative human being on the planet and look at their website, it's still exactly the same as everybody else's. Header at the top, some bunch of shit on this side, and there's a picture and there's a blog and then da-da-da-da. And eventually we all get told to sort of squash it into this mold that fits the you know, system that's already in
But aren't you an
place.
example of defying that? I mean, how in control of your career do you feel?
Yeah, I'm in charge, but that's the thing. You have to like bring the people around to it, and it's like there's certain things that I do people don't, you know, people are just like, huh, you know, and it's like that's the battle. Like if I shot my own, you know, photos with my artist that I've signed to my label called Jaime Martinez, and he only takes 3D photographs, and I was like, I just want all my press photos to be 3D because people are only going to see it on the internet, you know. And I didn't want all the, you know, record industry money for press promos to be spent on hiring a really good photographer. They just needed to go and pitch these cheap photos we made, but they look 10 times better and it's for the internet, to go, can we go with this? But even the blogs, all of the blogs, you know, they're just like, no, we want to run with a 2D flat image. And we don't have to, you know, the tool can support like more than that, you know. So even if I try, it's not there. I don't have that much power to change the fucking like whole look of the internet, but I wish that was my job. I would like that very much. But, you know, I think, yeah.
Let me come back to what people say, you know, and back to this. I mean, we don't have to talk about cheap shots. In general, Maya, you get so much attention. Like, censorship or not, you've had media exposure all over the world, magazine covers, profiles. I mean, even just doing the research for this interview, it's astounding how much has been written about you. You were profiled by the New Yorker magazine even before your first album came out in the United States. Do you like that attention?
I think, you know, if it kind of goes and creates the discussion, it's good because ideally that's what it's about. But yeah, it depends, you know. It's like I don't mind having the extreme of, you know, lovers and haters as long as it creates some sort of dialogue. You know, if it makes people think, then it's good.
Do you like being famous?
Everyone always says I'm really bad at it. But even the people that work with me are like, you're so shit at this. But
At what part of it? You know, like meeting fans or, I don't know, what part are you lousy at?
well, I think it's just, you know, if you're like an artist and stuff, it's about the process, you know, you're making something, blah, 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 and that's what's really addictive and stuff. And when people get it and want to talk about it, it's cool. But yeah, sometimes when you become like the thing, that's really annoying. And I think that's what fame is. Like, fame is when you yourself become the art and not your art. And that's like, yeah, that's a bit difficult because if you're not really driven by it, then it's difficult for you to like cope, you know.
When are you happiest?
When I'm making stuff, I think, yeah, I think that's, it's always been like that ever since I was a kid, you know.
Why do this stuff at all then? Why not just make stuff and forget about the...
What, and be a hippie?
Well,
And just like
first of all,
live on
maybe
a farm,
there's nothing
do
wrong
some
with that.
paintings.
But no, make stuff and don't do the touring or don't do the radio and TV visits or don't do the things that you feel
Well,
compromising.
I think kids need it more than fucking ever now, you know. I do feel that. And you're going to be like, God, you're so cynical. But I think it's just, kids do need it now, you know. And I could do it as long as I can do it, you know. Yeah.
Before I let you go, let me ask you about Sri Lanka. One thing you've done with your fame is draw attention to the Tamil people. And of course, Canada is home today to the largest Tamil population in the world outside of Sri Lanka. So the civil war that effectively ended there last year is something that a lot of Canadians have paid attention to. What kind of influence do you feel like your art, your outspokenness has had inside Sri Lanka?
Well, I have no idea because the last thing I read was on the government website and it said if I ever came to Sri Lanka, there's a grave waiting for me. But in terms of like kids outside, you know, I just want to say that they have to get on the internet, or they have to find ways to educate themselves where they can actually be really like, you know, constructive. And it's not, you know, like what I've learned from watching how the whole thing went down, because I was, you know, most of the stuff that I knew about it was also from the same news outlets as everybody else, you know. And just from seeing even like the BBC being threatened by the government and like big sort of editors being killed and stuff like that who oppose the war, and just, you know, even what's happening with the UN now and stuff like that in Sri Lanka, like it's just kind of interesting to see that the Tamil people just didn't understand what was going on. Like, you know, there was no way to fight back the idea that the government had already put it into the system that all Tamils equals terrorist, you know. And if you take the incident with the boat people, you know, that's what's happening. Like, it's easy to even call a little baby, you know, a potential threat to the country, or a potential, you know, a terrorist or something. And when we know in the West, like, it's got to be, that's just ludicrous, you know. And I think for that sort of ideology to penetrate so hard into even like an everyday person's like psyche, that all these people are bad, and then you just like wash your hands off them and let them live on a boat for a year or whatever, or put them in detention centers and stuff. It's like that's how much they've achieved, you know, that sort of like propaganda. And yeah, I just think the only way you can sort of get Tamil people's voices heard is for them to just like start talking and not live in fear, and just actually just, you know.
Home base for you is now in Los Angeles. You and your fiance and your son, 18 months old now, your son, around there. Is it more difficult to feel connected to Sri Lanka while living comfortably in LA?
Well, I haven't been in LA since I got my visa, and like March or something like that. But yeah, I mean, you know, I'm able to sort of, I've been touring, so I connect with people wherever I go. You know, there was a journalist in Norway who was really interesting, and she was talking to me about, you know, how dangerous it is for all the journalists still in Sri Lanka, and how like so many of them live in hiding and stuff like that. But it was really great to meet someone like that, you know, because she's like, the government basically benefit from that perception of, you know, the tigers still existing, or there's still
Is she a
like
Sri Lankan journalist?
No, she's Norwegian.
She's Norwegian.
But, you know, even the Norwegians got called terrorists for trying to like help and stuff, and some of them got killed. And yeah, I just feel like it's just, you know, it it it's interesting to see people around the world and like go to the shows and connect with them and hear stuff from their own mouth, because I feel like even on the internet, like there's not necessarily a place to go anymore where people can exchange these stories and stuff, because you can still be tracked down and killed, you know.
What about what about the United States in general? I mean, given that you have a home base there, you've had a complicated relationship with that country. I mean, are you comfortable in the United States, living in the United States?
Yeah, I think, you know, I think it's funny because after the Born Free video or anything I talk about in my work, when you're in America talking about it, there's like a general assumption that I'm talking about America and the American government and all things to do with America, but I'm not. You know what I mean? And it's kind of weird. It's just like that's just the conclusion they jump to because everything's about them, and it's kind of
The hubris of a dominant country, dominant ideology. Yeah.
So sometimes, you know, I think they understand me wrong, but there's a lot of people in America who are also very great.
Do you think you'll always feel like a refugee, no matter where you are?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mentioned your son. What has he meant for you? What have you learned from him?
There's just some things I have to keep to myself. Yeah. That's it.
Maybe that's what you've learned from him. Mm-hmm. It's really nice to have you here. Thanks for taking all the time and being so candid.
Thank you for having me.
Not that I expected anything different from
Yeah.
than candor. And best of luck with this record and beyond. And we'll see you back here, hopefully.
Thank you.
That is M.I.A. The new record is called M.I.A. It's out now. And M.I.A. has been with me here live in Studio Q.